Hey everybody, and thanks for watching Alan's Bonsai. So someone asked me to do an update on my imported Fukien tea. So here we are. And this is the tree. I purchased it in late January of 2025 in an 8-inch bulb pan. So if you go over here and grab me an 8-inch bulb pan. Okay, so 8-inch bulb pan. And so I immediately potted it into a 10-inch bulb pan, as you can see. And just ignore the bonsai pots over to the left. And then I let it grow out, like it is now. And then I took some cuttings in March of 2025, somewhere around there, February, March, early spring. And these are the cuttings over here. And they have rooted beautifully. And these were stuck in this perlite mix last year, over a year ago. So they are now rooted quite well. And I could have removed them from this cutting tray and potted them up separately a little earlier. But it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. They're still growing nicely. In fact, I just added some fertilizer just to the whole pot. And what will happen is, when I am ready to put these into individual pots, each cutting will have that much nicer of a root ball. It'll be so much more robust because I've waited, once again, over a year. These guys have been in here, a little bit of a weed. You guys have been in here over a year, and you can see from how dense it is that I got pretty good germination. So my plan is to take all this crazy growth from the parent plant and root them as cuttings too. I may actually try some summertime cuttings, because it's just so big. I guess the regular cuttings are not in the way. So now, I bought this from a Chinese importer. And in fact, the guy was Chinese himself. He was a Chinese importer. And for some unknown reason, every single tree imported from China has this weird swoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And I went down there to buy some pots, because the guy mainly sells bonsai pots, but he does have a nursery. And I knew I was going to have to buy a swoopy tree. And so I just, there was like 100 of them. It was $50, and Fukien teas grow pretty slowly. So I was okay with the $50. And at this point, I have no idea what I'm going to actually do with this thing. And if we pan out and we look, you can see, especially if I give it another little twist, whoop, that almost all the growth is lopsided. There's nothing over here. And that's because it still is, jammed up against some other trees. So if you've got another tree right here, plant's not going to be able to grow up into there, so it just grew that way. And when we get into the top, there's a lot of confusion. There's ants. There's damn ants, man. I hate those things. Gonna have to treat it for ants. But there's a lot of confusion. There's really, in my mind, there's really nowhere to go on this thing as far as how to make a tree, especially with the swoop. But I'm not worried about that. All I'm worried about now is using it as a stock plant, letting it grow rapidly. And that has also helped thicken up the trunk. When you're working trees every day and you have as many trees as me, you don't really notice. But I looked at the old video, and the trunk here, from about here down, has definitely thickened up quite nicely. I would say at least 1 millimeter or 2. And for a tree this small, I think that's pretty good. So that's the plan. Is just, I may try some summertime cuttings. I had fantastic luck doing them in March, and of course, you know, if you got good luck, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I may try to take some of these cuttings, maybe in the next week or two, and that'll chop it down a little bit. And I'm thinking seriously of putting it into a 14-inch pot, a bigger pot, which will help it grow even more. But right now, as far as styling the future tree from here up, you know what I'm going to do, I'm not worried about that at all. And when I do decide what to do with that, I will chop it back to almost nothing. And Fukien tea sprouts off of old wood super easily. So what will happen is I will get numerous different sprouts that come just below the chop, and then I can pick and choose which one of those sprouts I want to save to create my apex and my branching. And that's how I do it. I have a lot of trees where when I first purchased them, they were just plain ugly. But they had a decent base, they had some decent movement, they had a nice trunk, and I knew I could just chop off the top and start over. So that's the plan as far as when this thing is finally getting ready to be styled as a bonsai. Right now, it's just a stock plant. So the future of this tree within the next month or so is get it into even a bigger pot, 12-inch bulb pan or something like that. Try some summertime cuttings, and if they don't work, I will still have plenty of new growth next spring. And because I've already got such good success with the cuttings that I took last March, once I get, there's probably, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's probably 25 or 30 different cuttings in here. So if I can get that kind of success with taking cuttings from all this new growth, then that'll be about it. There'll be really no reason to continue to propagate this thing. And I'm a junkie, so yeah, I have sometimes, you know, I take cuttings to the point where I've got so many trees in training. I'm thinking, what am I going to do with all these? So that will probably be about it. One more attempt at making cuttings, and then I will probably still grow it out. It's just that when I chop off all this excess growth, it'll just go into the yard trash instead of trying to root it. I just don't need 100 Fukien tea. And I found that in the past the Fukien teas dried out on me. That was the really biggest problem. So I've kept this tree quite moist, and I actually have a plastic tray underneath, which is actually like the top of a pie pan or pie. You know, when you buy a pie, it's in a plastic container, and that's the top. And I've also got one underneath the cuttings, so that when water drains through, it catches there and the roots can suck it back up. These guys drink a lot of water. Fukien teas are also very tropical, so they sulk when it's cold and they die when it freezes. So I gave both of these pots, the parent plant and the cuttings, cold protection when we had the record freeze at the end of January of this year, and they didn't even miss a beat. So that's it. Fukien tea, Chinese import. You know, what's really crazy is they import these things from China, and every single tree, it doesn't matter whether it's a Chinese elm or whether it's a ficus or a Fukien tea or whatever, they have this swoop. They put these swoops in there when they're young seedlings and cuttings, whatever, and you know, you can go to a place like Wiegert's or even Brussels, and you know, they have mail order stuff where so they have an online store, and just go scroll through the trees, and almost invariably, when you see a swoop like this in a tree, it will say underneath, imported. Every single one. If it's got the swoop, it's imported from China. So I will try to keep you updated as this tree continues its journey. But for today, that's about it. The best way to get trees to thicken is to put them in bigger pots or even the ground, and then just let them do this. Push as much foliage as they want, totally unchecked, and that creates the quickest thickening that you can get. And like I said, I'm not worried about what this tree is going to look like once I chop it way back. I may chop it even, like down into here, something like that, and try to, make it maybe even a windswept and incorporate the weird swoop into the design of the tree. But that's all in the future. So I hope this was the kind of update that you were looking for. Fukien teas make good bonsai. They do take a while to thicken up. And by the way, these cuttings, once I put them into soil to grow them out, they will not get the swoop. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, all that good stuff. We know the drill, right? We got to make a little jingle. Subscribe, comment, hit the button. All right, I will not sing anymore, I promise.